I was alone for months, the kind of alone that doesn't make noise at first, the kind that slowly settles into your bones, until you forget what it feels like to be held by another human being. The days blended together, mornings turning into nights without meaning, and I started talking to myself just to hear a voice in the room. I need you to stay with this story until the end, because what happened after those months changed how I see people, love, and silence forever. It started after everything fell apart at once. There wasn't one big explosion, no dramatic goodbye. It was quieter than that. Too quiet. One by one, people stopped calling. Messages went unanswered. Promises turned into excuses. And before I realized it, I was sitting alone in a small apartment with walls that felt closer every day. At first, I told myself it was temporary. I said everyone gets busy. Life happens. I kept my phone close, always charged, always face up. Every vibration made my heart jump. Every notification that wasn't them felt like a small betrayal. I replayed old conversations in my head, wondering if I said something wrong, if I asked for too much, if needing people was my biggest mistake. Weeks passed, then months. I learned the sound of my own footsteps. I learned how loud silence can be at night. I learned how to eat meals standing up because sitting at the table reminded me there was no one across from me anymore. Sometimes, I would turn on the TV just to feel like someone else was there, even if they didn't know I existed. There were nights I didn't sleep at all. I would stare at the ceiling, listening to my breathing, counting seconds, feeling my chest ache in ways I couldn't explain. I wasn't just lonely. I felt erased. Like if I disappeared, no one would notice for a very long time. I stopped dressing nicely. There was no point. I stopped making plans. There was no one to make them with. I stopped talking about my feelings because there was no one left who asked. And slowly, I started believing this was my life now. Quiet, empty, small. The hardest part wasn't being alone during the day. It was the evenings. That moment when the sun goes down and the world seems to return to other people's homes. Laughter through thin walls. Footsteps in the hallway. Doors closing. Lives continuing. And me, sitting on the edge of my bed, holding my phone, wondering how I became so easy to leave behind. I tried to be strong. I really did. I told myself I didn't need anyone. That independence was a kind of power. But deep down, I missed being chosen. I missed someone knocking on my door without warning. I missed hearing my name spoken with warmth. There was one night, months in, when I finally broke. I remember it clearly. It was raining, the kind of rain that makes the city smell heavy. I was sitting on the floor, back against the couch, lights off. I hadn't eaten all day. My phone was in my hand, and for the first time, I wasn't waiting for it to light up. I had given up. I whispered out loud, barely audible, that I was tired, not sleepy, just tired of being invisible. That was the moment I accepted that this might never change. And then, they showed up. It wasn't dramatic, no warning, no long speech, just a knock at the door. At first, I thought I imagined it. I stayed still, heart pounding, afraid that if I moved, the sound would disappear. Then, it came again, slow, real. Someone was actually there. I stood up, my legs shaky, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe it was the wrong apartment. Maybe it was a delivery. Maybe it was nothing important. I didn't want to hope. Hope had hurt me too many times already. When I opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. There they were, standing in the hallway, looking unsure, holding bags in their hands, eyes scanning my face like they weren't sure they were allowed to be there. For a second, none of us spoke. Time stretched thin. I felt something inside me crack open. They said my name softly, not rushed, not loud, just real. I didn't know what to say. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I suddenly became aware of how long it had been since someone had seen me like this. No mask, no strength, just raw. They stepped closer, not crossing the line, just enough to let me know they weren't leaving. One of them said they were sorry. Another said they should have come sooner. Another just looked at the floor, guilt written all over their face. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream about the nights I cried alone, the birthdays that passed without messages, the way I had begged the universe for anyone to remember me. But instead, my eyes filled with tears, and I felt weak in a way that scared me. They didn't try to fix anything. They didn't give excuses. They just stood there, holding space, letting the silence speak for us. Eventually, I stepped aside and let them in. The apartment felt different with other people inside. Smaller, but warmer. They sat on the couch that had held my loneliness for months. They noticed things I hadn't realized anyone would care about. The empty fridge, the untouched photos, the way I flinched when someone moved too fast. We talked slowly, carefully, about nothing important at first. The weather, work, random memories, and then, without planning to, I started telling the truth about how hard it had been, about how alone I felt, about how close I came to believing I didn't matter. No one interrupted me. No one looked away. One of them reached out and held my hand. That simple touch sent a wave through me so strong I had to close my eyes. I didn't realize how much I missed human contact until that moment. It felt like being pulled back into the world. But something inside me stayed cautious, because while they were there, laughing softly, eating the food they brought, I couldn't stop thinking about the months before this. The empty days, the unanswered messages, the silence that almost swallowed me whole. I was grateful, truly, but I was also changed. When they finally left that night, after long hugs and promises to stay in touch, I closed the door and leaned against it. The apartment was quiet again. Not as heavy as before, but not the same either. I sat down and cried, not because they came, but because I survived without them. Being alone for months taught me something painful. It showed me who shows up late and who never shows up at all. It taught me that people can care and still disappear, that love doesn't always arrive when you're drowning, and that sometimes you have to save yourself first. They showed up, yes, and I'm glad they did, but the person who stayed with me through every silent night was me. And I'll never forget that. If this story touched you, please like, comment, and subscribe.